Well, Mr. Laolu Akande joins us now. He is the former presidential aide and also presenter of Channels Television's Inside Sources. Mr. Akande, it's good to see you. Were you attending the congressional hearing in person yesterday?
Yes, good morning. Yes, I was at the congressional hearing yesterday in Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Indeed. So I'm sure, for a number of people who were able to follow that, it seemed that it was a rather nuanced, a more nuanced hearing than had been expected, because it would seem that those who had been pushing for this designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, yes, they were pretty vehement, but then it would seem that we also heard from other people who, have a more balanced and a more nuanced understanding of Nigeria. What was your impression of how that hearing went down yesterday? Were you satisfied?
Well, you recall that quite a few members of the U.S. Congress, especially Congressman Chris Smith, who happens to be the chairperson of the Africa Subcommittee of the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee, and Senator Ted Cruz in particular. Those two of them came up with the idea of a bill to cause the designation of Nigeria by the President and Secretary of State in the U.S. as a country of particular concern. But before that bill could actually come to the floor of the House, U.S. President Donald Trump himself took that decision a few weeks ago and said that, look, I am designating Nigeria right away as a country of particular concern. And so you are right that once that happened, we had a lot of flurry of activities and narratives and the voices of those who believe that that is what ought to happen. And the president did it. But indeed, there were also other members of the U.S. Congress, as we saw yesterday at the hearing, who had a more nuanced approach to this thing, who demonstrated a bit more understanding of the complexity of the Nigerian condition. But one thing that no one could deny, and from both sides of the aisle in the U.S. Congress, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, one thing everybody agreed to was that, yes, there were killings. Now, the Republican members emphasized that Christians were being targeted, and while the Democratic members did not deny that, they just wanted a situation where the U.S. government had a more appealing, a more broad approach, to dealing with the killings. So whichever way you dice it, there is a clear indication that the American government, both the executive arm led by the president and the legislative arm, they are very keen to engage Nigeria to sort out what has become a very persistent problem regarding these killings that have been going on for a long time. And that was the impression that I left, coming out of the room yesterday afternoon, from the U.S. Congress. The American government, both the executive arm and the legislative arm, they really want to see how they can help Nigeria to end some of these very heinous killings.
Indeed. So I want to believe, I want to also think that the Nigerian government made a representation right there. But the people who were quite concerned, I heard criticism of President Bola Tinubu's government, whom they believe has not been doing enough to stem these killings, they don't think he's been sitting up enough. And they also think that the government has been too full of defense. It would seem trying to excuse the killings that have been happening in the country all along. What are your thoughts on the representations that the Nigerian government made, if any?
Okay, right. So, and this goes to, some of the things that, we have been stressing. For instance, the fact that our president and his foreign affairs ministers, they were comfortable with the fact that for over 2 years, we did not have a single ambassador anywhere in the world, and particularly now in the United States. So what that meant was that you couldn't even have a Nigerian official sitting in that congressional hearing. Okay, they had no ambassador. There was no Nigerian official, sitting in that hearing. I didn't know whether members of the Nigerian embassy in Washington D.C. were there, but none was recognized. So that tells you, the depth of the problem when the president and his foreign affairs ministers just basically subjugated and made a nonsense, a mincemeat of what an ambassadorial positioning ought to be. Now, having said that, at about the same time that the Congress was having this important hearing yesterday, Mr. Nuri Badu, the National Security Advisor, was also in town. As a matter of fact, he had met at least 2 congressmen, both of whom made the point of that meeting yesterday at the hearing, that Mr. Nuri Badu is in town with the Attorney General and the Inspector General of Police, I think the Chief of Defense Staff, and quite a number of very important Nigerian officials, about 10 of them. So they have met the chairman of the subcommittee on Africa, who presided over that hearing yesterday, Congressman Chris Smith, and they have also met Congressman Riley Moore, who has also been very vocal. And both of them, during the hearing, they gave their impression of the meetings. And I also had a chat with Congressman Smith after the hearing to get more about his own insight about what the Nigerian government came to deliver. And both of them, and I think they said it even at the hearing, that they were not impressed with the idea of the Nigerian government trying to deny the fact that Christians were being persecuted, that Christians were being killed. Now, they also concede what is also factual, that it's not only Christians, but they said that there was no point trying to deny the fact that Christians are particularly being targeted, especially, and they were very detailed about it, especially in Plateau and Benue and in southern Kaduna. And so they expressed that point. They also said, talking about their meetings with the Rebellion delegation, both of them, Congressman Smith and Congressman Riley Moore, they said that they challenged the Nigerian delegation to give them any kind of proof that some of these attackers, these terrorists, these bandits, these intruders, these violent extremists, that they should give any evidence about their prosecution. That not only are there no sufficient records about arrest, that there are no records of any kind of consequences being meted out to the perpetrators of this violence over a long period of time. So they made the point that was some of the things that they told the delegation, and that the delegation did not have enough significant proof that indeed the federal government has been up and doing, especially in the area of prosecution. So the point is that, yes, the Nigerian view is being had in town with the fact that you have Nuri Badu, Attorney General, and some of them in town. But this was the exchange, and the representatives of the State Department, which is the executive arm of government, 2 of them were at the hearing. They also said that the Nuri Badu delegation will be meeting with senior members of the U.S. State Department, in the coming days, possibly today, being Friday. But I'm sure that those meetings are going to be taking place between the Nuri Badu delegation and the executive arm of the U.S. government. But they've already met at least 2 Congressmen Smith and Riley Moore.
Well, one of the testimonies that stood out for me was one of Dr. Oge Onobogo. I'm sure that you must have listened to her as well. who spoke very distinctly about understanding the issues. It would seem that her representation, really put at the forefront what the issues really are. For our viewers who might have missed that, perhaps we could quickly play that for us. You can give me your impression of that and tell us where it is that we should be going from here.
It's important to engage deeply and broadly with communities across Nigeria. The U.S. can play a constructive role, but it must avoid selective intervention and address the concerns of all Nigerians across all religions to prevent worsening sectarian divisions. 2, it's important to rethink reactive quick-win actions that may seem beneficial to Nigerians, but could have larger and far-reaching negative impacts. If the Trump administration proceeds with unilateral military action in Nigeria, it could endanger the Christians it aims to protect and worsens divisions along religious lines. Now, recommendations for the Nigerian government. It is important to appoint a Nigerian ambassador to the United States to improve its international engagement and manage narratives about its security realities. It's critical for President Tinubu to appoint a capable Nigerian ambassador to the US, as I also recommended in my testimony in March. Second, the Nigerian government needs to make accountability of both perpetrators and of the authorities central to the response. Nigerian citizens need justice, as criminality in the Middle Belt has increased due to impunity. The narrative of Christian genocide has gained traction because of years of mass killings without accountability, leaving many faith communities feeling abandoned. Third, Nigerian government needs to get serious about police reform. Nigeria's single federalized police force struggles to address the country's complex security challenges.
Well, some people will say that it's hard to fault those summaries, talking about selective intervention, rethinking unilateral military action on the part of the United States, and also for Nigeria, asking the Nigerian government to appoint a U.S. ambassador and also put accountability and justice for those who have suffered this violence for years. Is there anything you fault there, Mr. Akande?
Well, certainly not, except that, and I did raise this issue in my private chat with Congressman Smith, the chair of the Africa Subcommittee, to say that he didn't think that Mr. President was really interested in invading Nigeria. And it was very clear that, even though the rhetoric seemed to have been a bit extreme from the U.S. president, but clearly nobody is envisaging a serious invasion of Nigeria. What I think is on the table, and the members of the U.S. State Department at the hearing also made this point, is that we're going to see how they can cooperate with the Nigerian government. Because now that the designation of CPC has been done, country of particular concern, that policy framework also includes the setting up. And I think the State Department people said that yesterday, that a task force has now been set up that will bring together both the U.S. and the Nigerian governments to look at the tools that the American government have on offer to help Nigeria sort out this issue. So I don't have any worries about that invasion. I don't think that's going to happen. But part of the point that was being made in the room, which Ms. Oge also restated, was the fact that there is need for justice. When there is injustice, every other voice is drowned by injustice. And that seems to me to be the strongest propelling factor in what has happened, that you have a U.S. president saying that, look, I'm going to prioritize what is happening in Nigeria. We're going to try and raise our voices to end it. It's because
all right,
the level of injustice.
Mr. Akande, we certainly will be digging deeper into this matter when you return. Hopefully, I know that, well, let's just say we'll dig deeper. No matter what happens, we certainly have to keep these issues on the front burner. We have to thank you so much for your time with us. Mr. Laolu Akande is the former presidential aide and also the presenter of Channels Television's Inside Sources.